Тихо, тихо! Где, сука? Вон, сверху! Пошли!
Now they are searching for the drone operator's hideout.
Ахмат, давай быстрее.
Russian infiltrators often hide in basements. That's why grenades are the weapon of choice in such situations. The front line is almost constantly monitored by drones that identify or strike targets. This makes an advance by larger mechanized formations nearly impossible without accepting disproportionately high losses. That is why, especially around Pokrovsk, Russia has resorted to sending small assault groups into battle. These groups attempt to slip through Ukrainian lines, often on motorcycles or simply on foot, in order to disrupt Ukrainian logistics. Often these detachments are heavily decimated while attempting to get behind the Ukrainian lines. However, from time to time, individual soldiers or pairs still manage to evade detection. In the broader operational context, this often has little impact. However, if these elements manage to entrench themselves somewhere and even carry one or two drones with them, they can locally disrupt Ukrainian forces. For the Ukrainians, it is therefore crucial to detect, isolate, and neutralize these infiltrators as fast as possible.
Еще раз! Кто? Кто я?
Пароль.
Какой пароль? Хохлы, сдавайтесь!
The Ukrainian soldier calls the Russian kokol, a slur usually used by Russians to insult Ukrainians. By doing so, he wants the Russian to believe he has run into two fellow Russians who mistake him for a Ukrainian.
Хохлы, сдавайтесь! Кто русский? Выходи! Кто? Пятый бат? Мы девятка, выходи!
The decision to draw the Russian into a brief but tense conversation proved worthwhile. As they talked, another Russian soldier gave himself away, allowing the Ukrainians to gain valuable information about the amount of Russians hiding in the basement. The situation presented a dilemma for both sides. With the new intelligence, the Ukrainians realized that storming the basement was not an option. The balance of forces was at least equal. As a rule of thumb, an attacking force should have at least a 3-to-1 superiority, and many experts recommend increasing this ratio even further in urban combat. Moreover, storming the basement would force the Ukrainians to pass through the door, creating what is known as a fatal funnel, a choke point where they would be fully exposed to Russian fire with no room to maneuver or escape. However, the fatal funnel also meant the Russians were trapped in the basement. Any attempt to rush outside would have brought them straight into the Ukrainians' field of fire, but at least underground they were safe from drones. The Ukrainians, on the other hand, even on their own ground, were constantly just a second away from being spotted and attacked by drones or artillery every moment they stayed out in the open. It is therefore understandable that the Ukrainians were very keen to lure the Russians out of the basement with words as quickly as possible.
Девятка, выходи! Мы девятка, выходи! Татары, немец! Татары, немец мы! Татары, немец!
Где мужики с миру, уходите! Хитрый!
Выходите, выходите! Надо еще внутрь. Экстрагенный, да.
Выходим, парень!
Давай!
The Ukrainian plan seemed to be working.
Выходи! Автомат спереду!
The next moments would decide the entire outcome of the situation.
Нет! Выше поднимай! И выше! Нет!
Так,
Нет!
пацаны, свои. Я выхожу. Я выхожу.
Выходи! По одному!
Я.
Хорошо, поднимись. Мы слышим, слышим.
Ладно, вот вперед, автомат.
Выходи! Кидай на землю! Есть? Второй, выходи, быстро! Гранату треба ще туди одну. Давай. Лохмати, я тебе. Давай. Я не зможу куди йти. Второй, выходи! Выходи, сказал! Я сейчас гранату закину! Смотри, ж мені скорчиться бігом. Возьми ножа у мене в кармані. Только без глупостей! Ты первого не чманул? Нет, не знаю. На нему целуется в голову.
The Ukrainian soldier, perhaps a little too trigger-happy, opened fire before the Russian had fully stepped up the stairs, firing just moments before he would have been completely exposed in the field of fire. A very human reaction considering the situation and the rush of adrenaline. Another factor is that the soldier is peeking left while holding his weapon right. At the beginning of the video, he threw the grenade with his right hand, which suggests he is right-handed. This means he was firing from an unfavorable position. For a right-handed soldier, peeking left is awkward for several reasons. The field of view is restricted, the weapon is harder to stabilize, trigger control feels less natural, and the body is forced into a more exposed angle. All of this makes accurate fire more difficult and increases vulnerability when using cover.
Я не вижу! Их двое. А? Их двойка. Я не вижу, я повторяю. Я не вижу тебя! Давай, держи, держи. Выходи! Давай, проходи. Ты точнее стреляй. Выходи! Блядь, я не вбив того нахуй, я, блядь, його 300 походу. Сука, нахуй. Выходи, нахуй. Ми так не виженемо їх все одно, а? Ми так все одно не викуримо їх. Отак. Так, що ж мені буде? Давай в хату заперемо. В хату треба нам, або не в хату, не точно ні. Якщо ми зараз уйдемо, то вони нахуй нас, всі будуть просто звідси.
Here another dilemma became clear for the Ukrainians. Positioned in the open under the sky, every passing second carried danger. Their left flank was especially exposed to threats such as FPV drone strikes or shrapnel from mortars and artillery. The logical conclusion would have been to change position and take cover in a nearby house. However, with the balance of forces being equal, this would have given the Russians a valuable opportunity to regain their freedom of movement, reposition themselves to more favorable ground for an open firefight, or even withdraw from the scene entirely.
Так він вже тебе їбало, ти бачив його спочатку? Ні. Ну, страшний світ. Страшно? Ага. Що події за що? Спочатку цю закинь. Блядь, треба, щоб їм нахуй туди закинути, іменно, поняв? А і так ти не зможеш. Хіба рикошетом, поняв, треба? Рикошетом, щоб попало, блядь.
The best course of action in such a situation would be to neutralize the enemy position as quickly as possible. In more offensive operations, this might mean attempting to fly one or more FPV drones directly into the basement or burying the Russians underground with heavy explosives. Here, however, that did not seem possible, leaving grenades as the only option. These would need to land as deep as possible inside the basement, giving the Russians no chance to escape the blast radius. Fragmentation grenades, for example, would extend that lethal radius, yet the Russians might also have built improvised defensive layers out of rubble inside the basement, which could block grenades and greatly reduce the effect of both the blast and the shrapnel.
Ух ты, въебала я ебу. Выходи! Нормально так въебала, блядь. Ага. Аж сука, цей порипалась. Контролиш? Ах ты пидор, ебан. АК-12. Друг, ты один останешься? А? А ты куда? В радийку, дядя.
The Ukrainians decided to use the radio to call in reinforcements, which would greatly expand their options and allow for a more offensive approach.
Пацаны, выходим, если хотите жить! Услышал? Я вам дал шанс!
With more rifles on the scene, the Ukrainians could begin to encircle the Russians and eventually close in on them.
Один там, один в хату заход.
Что, есть?
Давай, все одну.
Стоп. Это два города, наверное. А?
Один, все, заходите в хату. Ходьте сектора вокруг, на всяк.
Контроль, контроль.
Так, покажи. СНС перейшли. Все. Последний раз выходите меня. Зачистите всю хату и кричите туда, всю хату зачистите. Не даже ползик, да, пройдите по хату. Стой, бойками, не разделять. У вас был шанс. Стоит.
Це не відстрілювалися?
Ні, не стрілявся. І слуху не йдуть. Але все ж, мужики, держіть сектора хоч якісь. Мало ли, може вони уїбнули.
Це то.
Нормально все?
А, да, то я через
Якщо б вони уйобували, то вони б не засідали тут, вони б тікали кудись нахуй. Ну, зараз дим розвіється на заляк.
Там ще один погреб є, де я гранату кинув, блядь, не слуху, не духу, паня.
Ось.